Hello, everyone. It's me, Philmont Bostic. I am a newly minted PhD in practical theology, and my focus of my work is on humor and theology, and actually also hip hop. I bring this up because over the weekend, something very, very great happened. They had the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there were two inductees that I know of. One of them was the legendary group Salt and Pepper from the 1980s, who had classic hits, one of the first powerhouse female rap groups, really powerful group that was foundational into a lot of what hip hop is. I want to take this time to draw the connection to how Outkast kind of helped me get to where I am right now. What I love most about Outkast were they were foundational to some of my early understandings of hip hop. I got into hip hop from my uncle and was really big into it in the early 90s. Outkast came out around 92, 93. And the reason why I loved them so much because they were one of the first rap groups to me that showcased that people from the South could actually rap. What I mean by this is there were a lot of rappers at that time, but the South had mostly been known at that point for more like booty music, rump shaking music, not a lot of people being known for their lyrical skills and abilities. And so the first thing I want to bring up with Outkast is the 1995 Source Awards, which should be studied in and of itself because so much was going on. If you weren't alive and didn't know about the 1995 Source Awards, this was a very powerful transition in hip hop, mainly because this is when the East Coast West Coast beef was really going on. This is when you see the famous back and forth between Suge Knight and Diddy. But something else happened that night that was also very important. When the award came for the best new artist, it was given to the group Outkast, and they were in New York City. And so when they get on the stage to receive their award in New York, they're booed heavily booed at the 1995 Source Awards. And this is when Andre 3000 gave his famous line that says, "The South has something to say." This line is so important to me because it is actually featured in a book that helped push me into getting my PhD. It was actually this book by Esau McCaulley, Reading While Black. I read this in seminary, and it was really one of the first works that I had read that really tied things together for me that I had not seen before from a theological standpoint as far as a secular standpoint. In this book, Dr. McCaulley has a chapter that's entitled "The South Has Something to Say." And what he uses this title to dig deep into is to showcase how that voices like mine, African American voices, do need to be heard, and that we need to be at the table when it comes to our theological education. For those of you who've tried to get theological education, you'll learn about so many people of color who talk about theology from all these different perspectives, but very few times do you hear somebody from your perspective speaking about it. And it's not that they don't exist, they're just not featured. And so the joys of my program, I was able to read a lot of stuff that I wanted, and I chose this book to read, and it really made me think, what if I push my voice out there? What if I use my voice? What if I had something to say that the world needed to hear? And this is actually what pushed me into thinking about considering getting a PhD. Before this time, I just wanted to go to seminary, get my Master's of Divinity, and go about my business. But this book was one of the books that kind of made me think to myself, what if I had something to say that the world needed to hear? So as I began working on my dissertation, even though my focus was on theology and humor, it really kind of got caught up in the idea of Black linguistics, and one of the things being signification, and showcasing how a lot of these communication techniques that we use as African Americans tied into all of our particular communications, including hip hop. One of the people that I interviewed talked about one of the funniest preachers that he knew was somebody who not only studied the sacred, but also focused in on the secular. Said he would read newspapers, articles, journals, listen to all kinds of things because he understood that the way we communicate stems a lot from what's going on around us, what stimuli we're receiving, and we use that in our preaching in order to bring that to life. And so what I showcase in my work is how we as preachers can take these things, all the stuff that we receive, and when we're in our moments writing, we can use that to add to what makes our preaching better. And one of the things that I point out is that looking at the incongruities of life is where we find humor. So one of the theories of humor is this theory called incongruity theory, that we laugh at things that are incongruent. And as African Americans, we find so many things incongruent about our current society, and that bleeds over into our preaching. And so this is where we cut full circle and we look at this line from this weekend where Andre 3000 talks about how great things start off in little rooms. And so that really struck home to me. And the reason why that struck home to me is because my whole dissertation, every sermon that I craft is actually crafted in this little room, in my office or in my bedroom or in these small places. And sometimes we get frustrated by being in these small places, thinking that nothing great can come from them. But all great sermons come from spending time in these small places and really, really honing in on what we're talking about. I kind of feel like a surreal full circle moment, because it was Andre's music that I listened to, that he crafted in a small room, that later on inspired Dr. Macaulay to write his book, which I'm pretty sure was crafted in a small room, which inspired me to write my dissertation, which was crafted in this very small room, most of it anyways. And now the world is experiencing the greatness from those two artists, and hopefully they can hear something that comes out in my work that will help them along. So I say all that to say this: don't be afraid of small rooms. Don't be afraid of small situations. You don't know where that could lead you to later. So shout out to Dr. Macaulay, shout out to Outkast. I'm not here if it were not for those gentlemen who took both the sacred and the secular and blended them together. Again, thank you for watching. I'm using these moments on TikTok and other sources just to showcase my work, to showcase what I've been working on, kind of trying to get the stuff that's in this small room out to the world so people can experience it. But if you're interested and you like this stuff, leave a comment, let me know, and I'll keep trying to put some of this stuff out there for you. Thanks.